Afternoon from Los Angeles, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alyssa Corum here with Justin Nielsen, and on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the charts of Alibaba as well as Alteryx and an update for you on RH. But first, let's take a look at the major indexes. We saw strong gains across the board today, and it looks like we were able to close either at or near session highs. The Nasdaq closing with a gain of about 0.9%. Same with the Dow, and the S&P 500 closing up 0.6%. So once again, this bull looks to be pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, and Mike Webster had an Investor's Corner about expectation breakers, and I would say that this was an expectation breaker to the positive side. Because really after yesterday's action, closing at the lows, a stalling day, volume heavier, I would have expected this to run into a little bit of trouble today, and that did not happen. We closed, as you said, at session highs. We're in new high territory. This market just seems absolutely unstoppable. Now, one of the things that is a concern, and we were kind of talking about trend lines before the show, is that this is starting to get to an upper trend line. So this is best done on weekly charts that are logarithmic when you're doing a long-term trend line. And if you kind of just start drawing a line that covers as many points as you can, you'll see that this is a market that is starting to get into that higher range. And usually what happens when you get to those upper channel lines is you do tend to have a little bit of a pullback. So that is to be expected. Again, what's great is if you've been taking advantage of the market and getting these great gains, you can afford a little bit of a pullback, and that's not going to hurt you too much.
Right. Always good to keep that into perspective. And let's take a look at a few individual names, starting off with Alibaba, set to issue its quarterly report tomorrow morning. That stock gaining 3.8% today in slightly above average turnover. And with all of the coronavirus headlines, Alibaba has been quite resilient.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've been talking a lot about when you're looking at any type of pullback, look at those stocks that are able to kind of hold up nicely. Their relative strength lines hold up nicely. And Alibaba really got support, very close to its 50-day moving average line. And, that's exactly where you would have wanted to see it get support. Now, one of the headlines that was kind of driving the market today was that, the coronavirus, there's a lot more cases, and the death toll is rising, but there are signs that it seems to be slowing, and that's what a lot of people are looking at as the positive of this. If it's something that's slowing and not getting too out of control, that can be very positive for the market. And so Alibaba, while it did take that initial hit, it really didn't get down too much. I think, what was it, like a 13% correction, something like that. So it's not too bad considering how bad those headlines were.
Right. And with the earnings report coming out tomorrow morning, where would we consider this stock to be actionable? Because, we did see it lose a little support around that 10-week line, but it's kind of rebounded from that level. So would it be a move to a new high from here, or?
Well, really, if we can just kind of get back above, we're right in an area of resistance. So you don't even have to wait for the old highs. If you can just kind of get back above that near-term area of resistance from just a few weeks ago, that could be that could be an area that makes it viable. Now, again, you still do have those fears out there. That does make anything in China a little bit riskier. So that is something to keep in mind.
Yes.
Yeah. So
definitely.
You did the right action there.
No. All right. Well, we'll see how that pans out tomorrow morning. But let's take a look at Alteryx in the computer software sector, staging a breakout today with a gain of about 2.9% from a cup with handle base. Now, this one is also set to issue its earnings report tomorrow.
So Alibaba is tomorrow morning before the open. Alteryx is after the close tomorrow. So there were a few stocks that were showing, some pretty good strength. I mean, Cadence Design was also showing a breakout today, and that has earnings after the close today. So, it's very difficult to buy a stock that is breaking out right before earnings because it's, how do you get any cushion on it? We always like to go into an earnings report with some cushion because you never know what could happen. It could go down considerably, especially after that Regulation FD fair disclosure came out. You just don't know what can happen with earnings. So it's a little bit too risky to buy if you don't already own it. Right before earnings, but this is something that the earnings can be a catalyst for an even bigger move here, and that's kind of what we're looking at. You did have a 1 week handle that formed last week, and now this could be something that with the proper catalyst could be a big gainer, and you saw that in a lot of stocks this earnings season, having big gains on their earnings report and breaking out.
Right, and you mentioned Cadence. I'm looking at the early reaction to the report in extended hours. That stock is up 3%. So I'm sure we will be continuing to talk about that in the
something maybe day. For IBD Live tomorrow. And as Ed often says in his futures column, just because you see it in after hours trading doesn't mean that's what you're going to see the next day. But it's definitely a good start.
All right, and last but not least, let's check in on RH. Ed and I discussed earlier this week about speaking of an earlier resistance level, RH clearing that and following up with gains yesterday and another 2% gain today as well. And it's getting very, very close to a 243.67 level from early in December.
And so one of the things on this stock that we were kind of having an internal debate on is that the relative strength line was a little bit weak on this. And so we were kind of looking at it two different ways. For swing trading, and we did put this on Swing Trader, it was like, okay, look, we are just going to look for a small move here, a very quick move, and we're getting that. We put it on Monday, and we have gotten that quick move, and now it's coming to that old high, and so the relative strength is still kind of considerably under that previous level that it was at back at its previous highs, but it did kind of have that early move. So now, where do we go from here? It could pause here, and that would be completely normal. Pause right at those old highs. It could blow through those highs, showing a lot of strength, and that would be, great, and probably get that relative strength line back in new highs pretty quickly, or it could pull back, and that would be very normal. So you just have to be kind of ready for those scenarios and determine, okay, if this is a swing trade, maybe you're going to be taking profits as it gets to that old high. If this is something that you're doing as a position trade, you got that early entry, and that might be able to help you kind of sit through a pullback.
Yeah, I think this early entry has turned out to be a great entry point because although that relative strength line is off of the prior highs, it's above where it was kind of in that midpoint of that base at 229.70 level. So that's positive.
And so you don't always have to go back to the previous highs. It doesn't have to be like the relative strength line or the price is at an all-time high. Sometimes you're looking at those previous areas of resistance, and that gives you that early entry, allows you to get some cushion, and that can make all the difference in terms of your holding rules.
Yeah, well, clearly there's a lot of nuances here to looking at not only the relative strength line, but buy points as well, and the in-depth discussion will continue tomorrow on IBD Live, so make sure you tune in. Again, we do have a lot of earnings reports on our radar. Cadence, like we said, coming out tonight, Alibaba tomorrow morning, and of course many others as well. So make sure you check that out at investors.com/IBD Live. And we also have a webinar coming up next Thursday, February 20th at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And what is this all about, Justin?
The Cancel Investing System.
It is.
Okay, so is that who's going to be doing that?
Matt and Amy.
Matt and Amy. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So is it? And both of these guys are great educators. They've done a number of videos for us over time, and it's really about kind of learning the details of how we do what we do. How do we find the stocks that we look at, and it's really all about that Cancel Investing System, using those 7 characteristics that you find in the most common, the common characteristics of those big winners.
All right, very exciting. We'll make sure to check that out at investors.com/webinar. You can sign up today and get an alert in your inbox when that webinar starts. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. All right, sorry I put you on the spot there.
No problem.